Hello again, Lawyer Forward audience. I'm Mike Whalen. As you know, at this event, we are talking about the next thing, how to get past this moment of triage and emergency. And we put all our stuff online and we're like virtual ninjas now. But how do we get to the thing after that? Rethinking our business models and how we deliver services and how we serve consumers. We don't know what the new normal is going to be, even if it's changed all that much. So we're talking through that and how you can design your firm around that. Our friends are here to help us do that. Mary Juetten is with me. I'll turn time to her in a second. Before we get to that, I want to remind you that in the Lawyer Forward Facebook group, we are going to be doing watch parties. What that means is if you're watching this on the days that it releases on April 16th and 17th, you'll be able to go over there to a scheduled session where we'll be bouncing ideas around related to this conversation about money. And then later, if you watch it into the future, you'll be able to go back to the Lawyer Forward Facebook page, search for that conversation and add on to it. So make sure that you're in that Facebook page and that you're paying attention there. So for today, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Mary Juetten, rhymes with button. We are talking about money. This is my least favorite conversation, and I'm just going to go to sleep. Mary, how are you?
I am great.
Are you surviving the apocalypse?
I am surviving. I've learned some new tricks about getting groceries delivered to my house. So you may hear that happen. My son, who I'm very grateful, is at home with me. He is not going to toddle in here because he's 23. So he would like loom in, but he's been warned. So we are here. My husband is overseas in Saudi Arabia. So that's a little bit of a stress point. Not from the, Saudi Arabia's done a great job of locking all this down, except we're not sure when he's coming home. So
it's nice to have authoritarian governments when you're trying to stop a pandemic. And the good news is that you and I both did our hair and makeup today for the first time in a while to be able to talk about money. Why are we talking about money? I love this hoard cash, not toilet paper thing. I'm dorky like that. What are we talking about?
I'm super dorky. I told my family, they were just like stone silence on the call. I have a daughter who's up in Canada and she's just like, no, mom, no. And I'm like, yep, already gone. Slide's already done. So sorry.
It's nice to know that dad jokes cross genders. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Dad jokes know no bounds.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to talk about cash. And the reason is that, I am a practicing lawyer, but the thing we're going to talk about today is from my first career as an accountant. The whole idea is what you can do right now to hoard your cash and get more cash. And so we're going to start off, if it's okay. I don't know if I can, am I moving forward here?
Yes, you pushed a button and magic happened.
So we're going to talk a little bit about financial statements, not too long, I promise, but it's just helpful for, for what's going on. Then we're going to talk about some budgeting basics, a little approach. I created this super simple Excel file. If anybody wants it, they can just reach out. My information was on the front of the slides. Twitter's the easiest way. Just reach out and then, or shoot me an email at Tracklight and, we can go from there. The idea is, what can you do to generate and preserve cash? And a final note on outsource what you don't know. As lawyers, we like to think we kind of know how to do everything, and we are sort of 0 or 90. Either you do it all yourself or you outsource everything. This is something where you need to know a little bit about it. So financials, this is a little bit that you need to know. So a balance sheet is something that, we all should have our own personal balance sheet if you want to think about it. And this is an exercise that if you've ever been to a financial planner, they'll ask you to do this. So yes, you should know how to read companies' financial statements, and balance sheet is important, but this is more about like your own personal balance sheet. So you've got your assets. That's what's mine. That's what I own. So I would put my house there. But perhaps I still have a mortgage. So that's a liability. It's on the red side. It's theirs. You've given an IOU, like, bank, I am going to pay you. So your house, the value of your house would be on one side, the value of what you owe for the mortgage on the other side. And then to make it all balance, let's say I own a house for $100 and I owe $80 on the house. So my equity, you hear that term used all the time, but my equity is that 20 bucks.
Right.
So I'm saying, Mike, I have a house for $100. I'm going to sell it to you for $100. So then I would turn around and pay the bank the 80 because that's a liability to the bank, and I would get to keep 20. That's my equity. So that simple concept is years of accounting. But the idea is that you maximize your cash. Your cash would be listed as one of your assets. So
let me see if I can frame this and see if I'm right on this. We've been talking about a lot to business owners. Hey, right now you've got to make a plan for what your next 3 months looks like, what your year looks like. And obviously we're all talking about moving pieces, but if I'm understanding correctly, what we're using this for is in that planning, we're trying to get a picture of right now. We're trying to start with where we are right now. Is that right?
Yes. So just so that this is from, I wrote this book for Thomson Reuters. It's not a pitch to buy the book because it's overpriced. So I stole from my own book. I know there's a lot of stuff online about people doing these sessions and stealing and violating copyright. Well, I violated my own copyright. But so this is from this book. And so what you'll notice is that and I'm not going through this in any detail because I don't want you to fall asleep. If you notice up in the left-hand corner, it says balance sheet as of December 31st, 2015. A balance sheet is always, as you just said, Mike, a snapshot. So it's good to make a list of what are all your assets, what are all your liabilities, and then the plug number or the balancing number is how much you're in the good. Can be a negative number too. You can have more liability than you do have assets. So couple takeaways here is that you need to do this personally, but then you also need to do it for your firm if you have a firm. And your firm better be separate.
Right.
You cannot commingle the two.
So we're not talking right now yet, and I know we are eventually, but we're not talking right now about, what money's coming in, what's going out per se. We're trying to say, what do I have to play with? What are my Legos that I have, dumped out of the box for right now?
Yeah,
and then we'll
this
build
is like
later.
taking stock, taking inventory. Because for many people, almost 98% of us, it's a bit of a shock. Right. It's like, I traveled back from the Middle East on March 10th, assuming I'd be going back March 18th. I am now here for the duration. I don't know how long. So, my husband, who manages all of our money in an ironic twist because he is not an accountant, but an engineer, he basically made our balance sheet. Like, this is where we're at. This is what we owe. Right. And then what we're getting to, there we go, is the income statement. So the income statement in the set of financial statements is going to be for the past. It's going to be for like the year ended such and such a date. So this is just to show you, and I don't know if you can see it the way it's recording. I don't know. What's supposed to be on the top is a gavel to the right.
Yes.
And then on the bottom is a little funny picture of an accountant.
Right.
What this is, the takeaway from here is, as the lawyer, as the person running the business or running your household, you should know how much income, revenue, billings, whatever you want to call it, how much money is coming in. Then you need to know all of your costs. And that's what we're going to get into in a minute. But you need to know your costs, also called expenses, also called expenditures. And then there's a lot of talk around fixed or variable costs. Right. So you need to know that. And then you get to your earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation, which is a fancy words that you hear, and you see the word, people say it EBITDA or EBITDA. That word is something that you see a lot out there in the world. All that you care about is trying to figure out what your cash position is, because you're not filing financial statements. So all the stuff at the bottom, the charges and calculating and income taxes, amortization, leave that to the accountants. We don't care about that.
Right.
So, maybe because I clicked away from it. There we go. So on financial statements, on the income statement, you're going to have all of these different types of expenses, again, stolen from the book.
Right.
So you'll notice that it says fixed or variable. And so what that means is usually fixed, is fixed in place, but that's not what it's meaning here. It's meaning like you've committed to it, or it's a fixed expense. So you might have something like your bank service. Your bank might charge you $25 a month for your account. That's fixed. As long as you have the account, that's going to happen.
So does that mean like that's stuff we can't cut if things get tight, or you just know what that cost is going to be each month?
It means both. You know
Okay.
what it's a fixed amount, but it's also a fixed reoccurring cost that may or may not be able to be tackled, as opposed to the variable cost. Variable's the easier. Those are like the first to go. So my friends who are in advertising these days or marketing, they know they're the first to go. Like, that's it. We're cutting that cost. So that, like, your advertising might have something where you place this many Facebook ads, or you do that. You can control that. You can just go and turn it off.
So I'm thinking about like legal fees, for example. Clients, do they see us as fixed or variable, right? Like, where are we in their mind in terms of, is this an expense that I can get rid? Are we the marketing and advertising guy, for our clients?
Well, I think it goes back to the old, it depends, right? Like if you are in the midst of a divorce and you haven't paid a flat fee up front and you're paying as you go, you might be like, okay, I'm going to put a pin in that, or maybe not with all the stay-at-home stuff.
Right. Hurry it up. Yeah.
I'll pay the accelerated fee. I'll phone hello divorce.
Right.
So really, these are just examples because, for example, meals and entertainment. Now that's one that's pretty easy to control because remember, now we're back to, this isn't your personal meals and entertainment. This is your firm's. So those would be like a big zero unless you're sending people presents, which, I would think long and hard about that. So this is the concept. And just a little quick note, I know that there's a lot of different talk about what is the best method for accounting for your financial statements as a lawyer. And under certain, smaller firms can use the cash method. So today we're not going to talk about that at all. Everything we're going to now talk about is talking about cash, because, if you earn the fees, but you don't collect the money, it's really not going to help you. Right. And this is actually, I think we talked about this. I've been saying this for like 5 or 6 years.
Nobody listens until the world ends.
Yes. I have also been saying to my husband, if the world could just stop for a week, I could get caught up. I've said that for the last year because I've been working overseas on this assignment that's just like, 100 hours a week, it seems like. And now that I have my wish, I don't like it so much. But anyway, so just a quick thing, the budget basics. As far as lawyers, we're not starting from a great place. And this is from an old Clio legal trends, but I can assure you that it's probably the same, that most people can't estimate what's going on in their firm for the year ahead. And many can't estimate kind of on a month-to-month basis. So that's what we're here to talk about. Right. Okay, so the approach to the budget is the same approach that you would use if you had a business. You have to collect anything that is outstanding from your clients. You basically need to print out your accounts receivable list, write it out on a Post-it, put it on a whiteboard. I'm pointing over there because I have a whiteboard. You need to get that list and you need to start collecting. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a zero-based review of every dollar of spending. It's spending, expenditures, etc. So we only have the two things to play with: cash in, cash out. So we're going to try to maximize the cash in and minimize the cash out.
And I'm sure you're going to get into each of these, but I'm thinking about with that AR collection thing, is it better to get a discounted fee now versus the hope of a full fee later, right?
We're going to talk, we will talk about that, but it's a good question. I mean, it's into the time value of money, and it really depends. You know, it depends on rolling back to the very beginning. How much cash do you have?
Right.
Like, that's the first thing that you should be doing. I'm on a board of a marketing company where they saw half of their clients disappear in the first month. And what they did first was they looked at all of their cash. So what my husband did too. He's like, okay, how much money do we have in the bank here? How like, you know, how long can we last? As we had to put people back on our payroll in terms of the children who are adults, but my daughter lost 2 jobs within 1 week, that lives in Canada. So anyways.
So to call back to it, what we're trying to do is once we got our snapshot, now with our budget, we're focusing on improving our cash position.
Correct. So you're going to monitor everything weekly. For some people, it might turn in for the first 10 days. You're going to have to do this every day. You're going to have to look at things. But normally I tell people, oh, look at your AR and look at your spending once a month. No, you got to do this weekly once you get it set up. And be precise. This is not a matter of saying, oh, my insurance, like particularly if your firm uses accrual. If you use accrual, you might have paid your insurance bill at the beginning of the year. So the cash is gone, but then on your financial statements,
you're
going
spreading out that
charge. You're going to see the charge going each month. Well, for this, we're not going to divide things by 12. It's cash. It's when does the cash go out the door?
Right.
That's pretty important. Okay, so here's your question. $1 now is worth more than later. So that's like the little picture is, you know, the time value of money, getting that money in the door, particularly if you have things to pay for it. So, you know, call people, email them, you just can't send out bills and hope that people will pay.
Right.
Particularly if this sounds stupid, but particularly if you normally don't send bills electronically, if you mail bills, chances are wherever you're mailing, they're not there unless you're, you know, dealing with individuals. So email bills, call people, and make agreements. Figure out how much cash you need, and then you can decide, okay, I'll take half now and half later, or I'll permanently discount all my bills by 30% so that I can get the cash in the door.
Huh. So it seems like there's value to even knowing what's coming, meaning it would be better to take somebody who owes you $1,000. You call them, there's no way they can give you $1,000, but they can give you $200 a month for 5 months.
Correct.
You'd rather know you're getting $200 a month for 5 months than the hope of $1,000.
Right. And like, I'm like anybody. I hate AR collections. Nobody likes bugging people for money, particularly in a pandemic, but we're all in the same position.
But you can call and be like, as a service to our clients, we know money is owed, but money is tight. So we're trying to put everybody onto, you know, structured payments or whatever, to make it easy for you. What are you able to do in the next 6 months or whatever? And that conversation comes off as a service, and still, I think, gives you the benefit of knowing your cash position, even if it's not as strong as you thought it was, right?
Exactly.
Because you were banking on hope before. At least now you know what your cash position is.
Yeah, and generally, attorneys don't do a great job of picking up the phone. That's why I put call first. It's like call them first.
Right.
Don't send them an email about the COVID webinar you're going to do for them.
We don't need another one, Carl. Don't do it.
So, and making agreements, you know, you can decide, hey, I'm going to give a permanent discount or I'm going to defer.
Right.
It's really up to you. But, these are the type of times where if you do that for your clients, later they might end up paying you. And
Right.
it's a smart business thing to do. And it's a nice thing to do too.
Right.
We should be kind. For the new clients, like, set a realistic billing policy. If you can get as much cash up front, if possible, like, you might have clients, like, let's say you're a bankruptcy attorney or you're a business attorney, you might have clients that are actually doing better during this crisis, and they might be able to pay you up front. So just have an honest discussion with these people. Apply to the government programs, although still haven't seen any in the US. Have you heard of anyone getting paid anything?
I did today. Mike Ramsey of Nifty Marketing, who was a friend, he said that they had a big number. It got processed and they got it. I think if I understood correctly, sole proprietors and self-employed people or whatever were not supposed to start until April 10th. So
Okay.
I think we're just down on the list. And most lawyer, of the lawyers in our audience are solos. And so I think we may just be down the list right now.
Right. And if you're solos and for this, I mean, you are a business, you would have an S Corp or you would have an LLC, like you would be
Right.
PLLC. You are a business. You should apply to them. There will be another wave of programs for sure, because at the rate we're going. And this is a place where ask for help. Like, I have people who are serious business people who struggled with these applications.
Right.
So definitely ask for help, but try to get the unemployment. I know up in Canada, they did a really good job of sending out a bunch of money to individuals.
Which was less than us, it turns out. And Canada was so offended by that they did another program to give out more money because they were apparently offended by the idea that the United States is nicer than them. So they just
well, they're not nicer. I can say that. I'm both Canadian and American. My daughter got $2,000 plunked in her account,
Yep.
which was more than enough. But I'll mention her again when we get to the expense side, because she's a bit of a tough negotiator.
I do tend to mention my kids when talking expenses. Good point.
Yes. Well, she's 25, so she's hardly a child. So monitoring the AR weekly, I said that already. You got to start with daily and make those calls, divide them up. Lori Gonzalez of Reina Corp is another person who's very knowledgeable in this area about collecting AR and creative. And so she might be someone that, if you know her, reach out on Twitter. She's awesome. I saw this on Twitter, this idea that lawyers would touch their client trust funds.
Yeah.
Now, just don't
do it.
No matter how bad it gets, don't do it. Unless you earn it, of course. Then you're allowed.
It's tough though, because I think because there's so much panic about using the thing, I seem to know two kinds of errors. One is I peel from it all the time because I have no idea what the math is with my trust account. And the other is I avoid it like crazy because I don't know what the math is. And I think with either of them, and this gets back to your just literacy point, now is the time to sit and do the legwork of figuring out what the freak is going on with your trust account, right? Like, you may have money in there. You may have earned.
You may have money that you're allowed to access, but again, this gets back to the bottom thing. Outsource what you don't know. If you're not comfortable with that trust account, phone your accountant.
Right.
They would be more than happy to help you. But the other thing is, think long and hard about using your personal savings, particularly your retirement, because I know that they've put it out there that you can take from your retirement and you can do this and you can do that. Think long and hard about doing that to save your firm. As lawyers, you want to be nimble. If you're a solo, just try not to commingle at all. Yeah. I don't know what you're feeling on that, but that's my kind of cautious
Yeah, it's a tough thing because I mean, and I've thought about this a lot. The only thing consistent about your business, if you own a firm, is you. So on one level, you're like, oh, saving the firm is saving me. Um, but on the other level, that's insane because you really need to save yourself. And so if you're looking at, cut what you can, and I know we're going to talk about that, cut what you can, but don't kill your future for the sake of a law firm. If clients don't have demand right now, then an answer might be shutting down for a while and getting a job. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah. So
But
put it on pause. Put it
yeah,
on pause.
yeah,
Don't, personally, same marketing company, their CEO said in 2008 when they had a big downturn, because again, marketing
right,
first to be cut, he put a lot of his personal money into the business
yeah.
and just like
Into the wind.
gone,
Yeah.
gone. And so he's not doing that this time at all.
Well, and it's not a personal failure. Like I think it's hard for us to detach ourselves emotionally from the business. But if it is a real business, right, which when it's convenient for you, you tell yourself it's a real business. If it's a real business, businesses go on pause. Businesses declare bankruptcy, right, and restructure and come back in a different form. This is not if you look at your cash position and you can't figure out how to solve your cash flow, it would be okay for you to. I've done this. It's a long story, but there was a period that I was so tired of my law practice that I seriously just went inactive with it. And I went and was selling security systems for ADT on commission only because I was so pissed one day, right? Like I just hated my practice. And then I came back to it, right? Like I went through this emotional thing that I was processing, and I came back to it. If you're in the same spot, cash flow wise, where you're like, oh, I'm a criminal lawyer, and that's completely stopped. One solution would be, let me find other ways to get cash, which we're going to talk about in adding new products or new services. Another might be just to put it on pause for a while if you've got another way to solve it. But
Right. Okay. So now let's talk reduce cash outflow. The name of the game is delay, delay, delay. So you don't want to get a bad rep and not pay your bills, but there is a way to do this. And you just basically, many of us will have just done your taxes,
right.
Hopefully. I'd already done mine. They're already filed, whatever.
Yeah. Braggy.
I actually don't do the filing, even though I am an accountant. I do not do my own because I cannot keep up with tax law. So again, outsource what you don't know. So I pay my wonderful CPA firm here in Phoenix, does my law firm, my track light, and my consulting company. So you gather all your bank statements, all your bills, all your credit card statements, last year's financials, what you've spent for the first 3 months of this year. You gather it all. And if you have an accounting system that you're using like QuickBooks and stuff, that's fine. That's going to have your firm stuff. I want you to also gather your personal stuff, not commingle them, but gather them and go through what you're spending all your money on.
Right.
It's usually a horrifying experience because
you didn't remember signing up for that stupid monthly fee. That
correct. Yeah. And so in a lot of ways, it's like spring cleaning for your finances. You go through everything and you're going to find things in both buckets, your personal and in your firm, that you're like, what am I doing? I did this not so long ago for Tracklight. I was like, why do I have both? What was it? It was like Zoom and one other. I was like, why do I have two platforms? What am I doing? That's ridiculous. Right. So it's just you just don't pay attention to this level of detail. And I'm talking about like down to $5.
Right.
So you do that. And then you look at it, and this is where we get into the fixed versus variable thing. What can you cancel? What can you postpone payment? What can you defer? What can you not live without?
Right.
Okay, so then you have a new list. you're still going to have things on there where you've got commitments. So bringing up my daughter again, she lives in Whistler, so she does not own a place. She rents. She basically gathered 4 articles about rent relief that was supposed to be coming to landlords. She sent them to her landlord. She phoned him up and she said, I need my rent to be reduced by $750, which is slightly less than half. It's like $2,000 a month. It's crazy. Canadian, luckily. So she basically, no, actually she asked him to reduce it in half, and then they went back and forth and she got $750 off. So it's a permanent change as long as the quarantine continues and she doesn't have a job. If you don't ask, you're not going to get.
Right.
So yes, so you can do that with landlords. Landlords may get relief because if they apply for the PPP and get some relief, then they can pass it on down to you. So for any lawyers that have rent, ask.
So maybe maybe this is too generic a question, but how important is our current cash position in the sense that borrowing from Peter to pay Paul thing, if I can put off my rent for 6 months, but that's still accruing during that time, would it be better to have, how do I make the decision to have that cash now, knowing that 6 months from now, I'm going to be hit with a huge bill?
Well, it depends if so like in my daughter's case, she pays less rent and she never has to. So she's not putting it off.
Okay.
It's a discount. That's what you should ask for. I want a discount during this time. Then the time, it will go back up.
Right.
As far as if you are putting things off, that's where we'll get to the budget. Definitely, if you were only putting it off, you would have to try to take that time to gather that money through your accounts receivable
I gotcha.
or
Right.
your new money.
So now on your sheet, there's a big bill coming. Work your butt off to get that dealt with. Right. So strengthen your cash position now, knowing that you're going to have to really work it pretty soon.
Yeah. And with credit cards, if you've got balances or you've got, fees or interest, the banks, they would rather have some money than no money. Right. So you can just phone them up and say, or email them if you're Chase, because you can never phone them, and just say, I want this not postponed. I want this forgiven. American Express, like if you've used them for a long time, it's totally doable. And I know people who have actually done this in the last couple of weeks. And then if you know that eventually you're going to get money somehow, some way, you could do the whole no interest credit cards as a temporary measure to be able to pay for things now, but you need to put them on your cash sheet, which I keep talking about the cash sheet. So this is the high level budget for April. Right. Now, obviously I've just made these numbers up, but the idea is you need to look at what you can get in the door in April. So this isn't what you're billing, not what you're billing. This is the revenue, the cash that you're getting. Cash is king. And then in the expenses, if you look down, I made, obviously these are not real numbers. Right. The insurance, my liability insurance, my malpractice insurance is due this month and I have to pay $2,500. So that's cash out. Or could I maybe use one of my credit cards and then that would kick that down the road a couple of months if I timed it right. So maybe I should pay for that on my credit card. And then that way I wouldn't have this cash shortfall this month.
Can I ask an intro question? When you're doing this kind of budget, are you including yourself in the payroll or are you paying yourself just the net?
It depends. If in this example, this payroll, it was like my firm, it's just like an example. So that payroll would be the total amount out the door to the government, to the people, whatever number, but it wouldn't be to myself if I'm not paying myself.
Okay.
If I needed a draw, then you should put in like another line that says, my draw, $5,000.
Right.
So at this point, there's nothing left over. unless I can figure out how some of this stuff goes away.
Right.
And so like with your insurance, if you were doing accrual, for example, then you would have approximately 200 and 2,500 divided by 12, you would have a $200 charged each month on your statements, but that doesn't matter when you're looking at the $2,500 bill that needs to be paid.
Right.
So the idea is, this is April. So there's a few do's and don'ts, and then I'll just show you kind of the overall ones. So when you do this process, once you get to the point where you're putting it into the sheet, what you're doing is you're creating different scenarios, because none of us can figure out exactly what's going to happen with everything. But instead of, because as lawyers and engineers like to do this too, like they try to get super precise. It's like, no, it's best case, worst case, and then like in between. And I recommend doing 4 months, not 3 months. So that would be not include April because we're already into it, but like you still do April, but then plan out May, June, July, August, and then put the rest of the year, and then look at, are you going to be okay? You know what happened in the first 3 months, then what does it look like? And basically saying the don't, again, with the trust and commingling. And when I say don't commingle your personal money, you can lend your firm money, but make sure it's done properly. Like your accountant will show you that, how you would do that.
Don't just do transfers real quick.
Just don't. And also, if you hate all of this, and at this point you might have like turned the volume off, then get somebody else to do it. Right. It's not rocket science in the sense that, many of us have smart teenagers and people. You can put your family to work. You can have them go through all of the bills. You could get them to go through your credit card statements and make pretty spreadsheets. It would give them something to do. But in all seriousness, if you hate math, find somebody. If you can't afford an accountant or you don't have one, find somebody to help you.
I sort of love the idea of having my kids do it, because I just, as an aside, my mom raised us always trying to hide how broke we were. She like made a huge effort to make it so the kid, because she didn't want the kids to have the stress of.
That's so sweet.
It is so sweet, and also so terrible, because all of her kids are now terrible, awful, stupid with money, because we didn't know it was real, right? Like we didn't know it was a real thing. So I actually love the idea of involving your family and figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, my husband taught my daughter and my son all of the finance stuff, and which is hilarious given that I'm an accountant, but they're very good with money and budgeting and down to the dollars and everything. So it's a time to learn, as they say. So here's the cash is king budget approach. So this is an Excel file. If you don't like Excel and you don't even know how to set this up, Mike could send you this, or I can send you this. You can just add in or delete what you don't want, but this is not the list of everything that you spend. That's something that you do separately. You make all those lists to figure out, okay, my marketing, I already paid them $150 in April. I'm going to cancel that. So then you'd be able to put zeros beside that. The goal is to fill in for May, June, July, and August, everything that you think you're going to spend because you're committed to it. So this
isn't like expense tracking, right? You're not balancing your checkbook here. This is you saying, I'm zero basing my budget here, and I'm going to say each month, I think this is how much I'm going to get. I'm going to go spend it real quick on paper, and then later spend it in real life.
So what you're going to do here is you're forecasting. You're looking forward, and you're saying, okay, in the month of May, what can I get away with? And so your worst case is I can't cancel anything. I can't defer anything. I got to pay my full rent. I got to pay everything. So that's your worst case. So you put that in for the 4 months, and then you put in the total from September to December. And then you can say, okay, what's my best case? What can I go after? Maybe my rent, I'm just gonna, maybe we're at WeWork, and you got to give 1 month notice. Okay, so I got to pay it again in May, but I don't have to in June and July. And this is the level of detail that you go in. And just, if you don't ask, you don't get. So just, in this day and age, just ask for it. And you might be getting that, the EDIL grant. You might be getting PPP money. That goes up in the other column up there, or make a grant column. You mentioned before, changing what your offering is. As long as it's within legal, that's fine. Or you could have a line for like loan from your consulting business, because maybe all of a sudden you start consulting and you're going to loan the firm some money from that.
Right.
Again, don't commingle it with your law practice, as we all know. But the whole exercise is not fun.
Right.
But it's necessary, because sticking your head in the sand and pretending that this is all going to work out, or thinking that your accountant can just do all of this for you, you need to do the legwork. They're not going to know, your accountant's not going to know what your subscriptions are, and whether maybe that's a subscription to Clio that you need, or maybe it's a subscription to Masterclass that you don't need. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what it actually is.
Right.
Sorry. So did you have any questions on that?
No. I'm just thinking about how you decide. We tend to get really focused on revenue, and what people are freaking out about right now is the revenue side. And we're focusing so far really on the expenses bit. I'm trying to think of, if I'm forecasting, you mentioned like the worst case scenario, for example,
right.
Do I forecast a 0 revenue month? Like how do I decide the top line of it? Right.
So good point. So if, sort of rolling back to the idea of, if you're taking on new clients, like some people might not be able to take on any new clients, but if you are taking on new clients, then what you're forecasting is how, like, based on how you're going to bill them.
Right.
And so if you are the type of lawyer who's doing flat fees up front, and they're not going to your trust account, it's a bit tricky. But what needs to go in here is what cash you're going to get that's accessible. This isn't like looking at how you're going to earn that.
Right.
It's like,
you're not mapping out your AR for the next several months. You're saying like legit, what cash is going to come into my house?
So for example, as a business attorney, let's say you're going to do, you're going to do a deal, and not a deal, an NDA. So you're going to charge $1,500. I'm just making up numbers. It's a law. You're going to charge $1,500 for this NDA project or whatever it is. So you know that person will pay you the $1,500 in May, and like the last week, or you think, okay, I'm going to collect the money in May, and then I'm going to do the work in June. So you don't have to wait until and put it in. This is just a stupid example, but you don't have to wait and put on this sheet. You wouldn't put it in June, because you physically get the cash, so you could start using the cash, not in a trust account. It's like a big disclaimer.
Meaning, because that kind of engagement, you moved over to your earned account, your operations account.
Yeah.
Because it was a flat fee?
It's like a flat fee that's coming in up front. It's not going into your trust account. It's not a retainer that you have to earn. But that said, if you've got retainers that are monthly retainers that are coming in, then you put them in here. If you
maybe you, like, thinking about we use retainer to mean two different things, but in law, which is so annoying. But let's say that you brought somebody in and you said, okay, instead of charging you $300 an hour, this is getting into some rules, so y'all look this up, but instead of charging you $300 an hour, I'll charge you $250 an hour, but I've got an earned retainer down here because you're, for all the check the boxes rules of I'm foregoing other work because you came in or whatever. What you're saying is favor the cash that you can get now rather than the hourly bills that you can get later.
Right. So you want to try to do more work that you can either get a flat fee up front or do
Right.
something creative like that within the rules. Look up
Right.
your rules.
Yeah. I'm not in charge of your rule compliance, people. Okay.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
neither am I.
Right.
So the idea is now, and for the clients that you are saying, like, it's a matter and you've got an engagement letter already and it says, this is how it's earned. I'm going to send you a bill each month. So again, send the bill electronically. If you don't already accept credit cards, fix that now.
Yeah.
Like immediately. Because paying whatever percentage you pay, again, cash now is better than cash later.
Oh.
So yes.
So you mentioned earlier getting help. If you're talking numbers this small, quite frankly, I don't know if I would go chase down an accountant in this scenario. You can do this math, but how do I know the trigger for going to get help with this?
Yeah, well, these were numbers that I just made up that were like super small. This wouldn't even be one lawyer like you'd think.
Right.
I made it on purpose, super small. But most law firms, you should. Well, if you do this and A, you're not comfortable with numbers, B, the numbers get into the tens of thousands, then ask for some help, particularly if you look at your AR, because, I know we're talking about new clients and everything, but you'd be amazed. Lori and I have talked about this a lot of times, and I've had people call me up and say, I'm a small firm and I have $2 million in accounts receivable, so I have to go to the bank to borrow I'm like, what? Like, manage your receivables. What are you doing? So it's a good news silver lining thing. Many lawyers will probably have receivables, and it doesn't matter whether you're essential or not. You've already done that work. That's your money. So go forward. Hopefully this will promote people to do a better cash management job, but asking for help from people on the business side for things like collecting receivables. You can even send things to collections. I wouldn't do that in this current environment. But as we come out the other side, hopefully by the end of the summer, then if you've got receivables that are old, you might consider doing that in the fall. Better 80% of something, or 70 or 60% of something in the fall. Because if it's not paid by then, you might not get anything.
So take me to your takeaways slide. I know you've got a message at the end. As you do this, remind us how to get in touch with you when we want to know who to blame or get mad at. Because that's really important.
I will be returning to Saudi Arabia, so good luck finding
You will not find me. I am hiding.
You can always find me on Twitter. That's in the first slide, so I'll go back to that after this.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know how to do that without making everyone's head spin, actually.
There's buttons.
So big takeaway. This budget is estimating.
Right.
As lawyers, we like to be so precise, like get it perfect. No, you need to have estimating, and this is where Excel is your friend, because you make one and then just copy it and make best, worst, middle. You got to go line by line. There's no way around it, unless, of course, you're in a great position. You have millions of dollars in the bank. Just ask for forgiveness, ask for deferral, ask for forgiveness first. That's like, making it go away personally. Making it go away personally. This is the most important one. Do not commingle. Do not. Because the IRS, 2 years, 5 years from now, when you go, oh, but that was, remember the COVID thing? Then I just moved a bunch of money around. No, you don't want to ever get audited by the IRS, and this will not be an excuse. They might be extending deadlines. They're not changing the rules. And the most important thing is outsource what you don't know. So let me see if I can do this properly.
You can just hit back a whole bunch of times. It's funny, as you were saying that about getting the forgiveness versus deferral. I would be surprised if I would not be surprised if they ended up passing a rule this year where if you got loans forgiven, that they don't count it as income, right? Like you don't know. I think maybe a takeaway here that from your point, Mary, is that they're going to do all kinds of forgiveness programs, right? They're going to do stuff for landlords, probably. They're going to do stuff for debt, probably. I mean, you just don't know. So right now, default to preserving cash and deal with the other stuff later, right?
Right. But just don't break any rules thinking that you're going to get that kind of
Right.
forgiveness.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just I definitely would not say to my bank, like I would ask for forgiveness, even knowing that there could be a tax penalty for it. Right.
Yes.
Just make the decision to preserve your cash. So anyway, best way to get in touch with you is there on the page. I thank you, Mary. I would just remind everyone that this is Money Conversations Give Me the Heebie-Jeebies. But we're going to talk about it in the Lawyer Forward Facebook group. So make sure you look out for the session. We'll label it and make it so you can identify it easily on there. People will be pinging around ideas about creative ways to come up with cash. And it is a pretty public forum, so I hope they don't come up with really creative ways to come up with cash, because we don't want to know. There are things about you we don't want to know. Mary, thank you. I will not see you in person for a while, but I look forward to seeing you on the interwebs. Thank you, dear.